The immigration officer stamped my passport and slid it back across the counter without making eye contact. Approved. Another 90 days. I folded the passport and put it in my jacket pocket next to the wedding ring I'd stopped wearing 3 months earlier. Behind me, a Thai woman in her 30s was arguing with a different officer about documentation. She was saying her husband was waiting outside, that he had all the papers, that this was a misunderstanding. I recognised that tone. Desperation disguised as confidence. I used to believe it too. My name's Frank. I'm 61 years old. I worked for 27 years as a contractor in the oil and gas industry, mostly in Alberta and the Dakotas. Pipelines, refineries, remote sites where you worked 6 weeks straight and then flew home for 2. I saved aggressively. I didn't drink much. I didn't gamble. I retired at 58 with $512,000 in a managed investment account and a small rental property in Fort McMurray that brought in about $1,850 a month after costs. My plan was to live somewhere warm, somewhere cheap, somewhere I could stretch that money for 30 years and maybe leave something behind when I was gone. Thailand made sense on paper. The execution didn't. I moved to Pattaya in February, about 3.5 years ago. I chose Pattaya because I'd visited once on a work break in 2009 and remembered it being straightforward. No pretense. You knew what you were getting. I rented a condo on Pratamnak Hill for $680 a month, a 1-bedroom unit with a view of the bay. I told myself I'd stay 6 months, see if I liked it, then decide whether to commit long term. I stayed. But the version of Pattaya I thought I remembered wasn't the version I found. Within the first month, I met a Canadian named Dennis at a bar near Walking Street. He was 64, formerly in construction, living in Yomtien. He'd been in Thailand for 11 years. He told me the only rule that mattered was this: never marry a Thai woman, never buy property with a Thai woman, and never believe a Thai woman when she says her family's in trouble. He said every single guy he knew who'd broken that rule had lost money. Most had lost everything. I thanked him for the advice. Then, like an idiot, I convinced myself I'd be smarter. I wasn't looking for a relationship immediately. I was looking for stability first. I wanted to establish an income stream that would supplement my savings and take pressure off my principal. I'd always been handy. I'd worked with tools my entire adult life. I figured I could offer small repair and maintenance services to expat condos and rental properties. There were thousands of foreigners in Pattaya who didn't want to deal with Thai contractors for minor jobs. I thought there was a gap in the market. 2 weeks after I arrived, I printed business cards. Frank's Fix-It Services. Electrical, plumbing, general repairs. Expat-owned, English-speaking. I left stacks of cards at expat-friendly coffee shops, posted in Facebook groups, and put flyers on condo notice boards. The first callback came 11 days later. A British retiree in Yomtien needed help with a leaking shower valve and a ceiling fan that wouldn't turn off. I charged him $47 for 2 hours of work. He paid in cash and said he'd recommend me to his friends. In the second job came 4 days after that. An American couple in Pratamnak needed their washing machine reconnected after a move. $35. The third job was a week later. A German man in central Pattaya needed 3 light fixtures installed. $52. It was slow, but it was building. By the end of the first month, I'd completed 7 jobs and earned $283. Not enough to live on, but enough to prove the concept worked. By month 3, I was averaging $920 a month. I'd done 19 jobs. Word of mouth was starting to work. Expats liked that I showed up on time, didn't overcharge, and spoke fluent English. It wasn't a fortune, but combined with my rental income from Canada, I was covering my expenses without touching my principal. That milestone felt significant. It felt like I'd earned the right to think about something other than money. And I suppose that's when I gave myself permission to be lonely. I'd been in Pattaya for 3 months. I'd met plenty of women, but they were all working girls or women clearly angling for financial support. I wanted something different. I wanted someone who had her own life, her own income, and wasn't desperate. I know how that sounds coming from a 60-year-old foreign man in Pattaya, but it's what I wanted. I joined a language exchange group that met on Thursday nights at a cafe in Jomtien. Most of the attendees were younger Thai students and a few older expats trying to learn basic Thai. One of the regular attendees was a woman named Apiradi. She was 29. She worked as a hotel receptionist at a mid-range hotel near Beach Road. She earned 22,000 baht a month, which she mentioned casually when someone asked about cost of living in Pattaya. She had her own apartment. She drove a small Honda motorbike. She didn't ask anyone for anything. Our first conversation was about Canadian winters. She'd never seen snow. I told her about Fort McMurray, about temperatures dropping to -40, about ice forming on the inside of windows. She said she couldn't imagine it. I said Thailand was the opposite extreme. She laughed and said Pattaya wasn't real Thailand. Real Thailand, she said, was up north or out in the countryside. Pattaya was just a version of Thailand designed for foreigners. I liked that she understood the difference. We started meeting outside the language exchange. Coffee first, then dinners. She always insisted on paying for herself. When I offered to cover her portion, she refused. She said she worked and earned her own money and didn't need a man to pay for her meals. That refusal mattered to me more than anything else she could have said. 3 months into dating, she stayed over at my condo for the first time. It was her decision. I didn't push. The next morning, she made coffee and told me she liked spending time with me because I treated her like a person, not like a service. She said most foreign men in Pattaya saw Thai women as either bar girls or maids. She said I was different. I believed her because I wanted to. 6 months after we started dating, she asked if I'd ever thought about living together. She said her lease was ending and she was looking for a new place. She said it might make sense to share expenses. I suggested she move into my condo. She said only if we split the rent fairly. I said the rent was $680. She offered to pay $280. I thought that was more than fair. She moved in during the rainy season. For the first 4 months, she transferred $280 into my account on the first of every month without fail. She kept working. She kept her own schedule. We cooked together. We watched movies. It felt stable. It felt like I'd found what I was looking for. One night, lying in bed, she joked that if we ever broke up, she'd probably take half of everything I owned. I laughed. I said she was welcome to half of a toolbox and a 12-year-old truck. She said that was better than nothing. At the time, it felt like banter. Looking back, it was a preview. I thought she actually cared about me. I thought the relationship was built on something mutual. I thought because she worked, because she contributed, it's because she never asked for money in the beginning, that she was fundamentally different from the women Dennis had warned me about. I was wrong. The difference wasn't in her character. The difference was in her timing. About 8 months into living together, Apiradi told me her mother was sick. She said her mother lived in Buriram, a province in the Isan region, about 7 hours northeast of Pattaya. She said her mother had diabetes and high blood pressure and needed regular medication that cost about 6,700 baht a month. She said her younger brother, who still lived at home, couldn't afford it on his construction salary. She wasn't asking me for money. She was just explaining why she seemed stressed. 2 weeks later, I asked her how her mother was doing. She said not well. She said the medication was helping, but the family couldn't sustain the cost long term. I asked how much it was monthly. She said 6,700 baht, sometimes 8,200 baht if her mother needed additional tests. I offered to cover it. She refused. She said it wasn't my responsibility. I insisted. I said I cared about her and if her mother needed help, I wanted to provide it. She cried. She said no one had ever done anything like that for her before. I transferred 8,200 baht that night. The next month, I sent another 8,200 baht, then another. It became routine. I didn't think much of it. It was less than 2% of my monthly budget. It made Aparadi happy. It made me feel useful. 4 months after I started covering her mother's medication, Aparadi said her brother's motorcycle had been hit by a truck. He needed surgery on his leg. The surgery cost 43,000 baht. Insurance didn't cover it because he didn't have insurance. She said the family was trying to borrow money from relatives, but no one had that kind of cash available. I transferred 43,000 baht the same day. She said I was saving her brother's ability to walk. She said her family would never forget what I'd done. A month later, her father's truck broke down. Repair, 17,300 baht. I paid. 2 months after that, her younger sister needed money for a business course. 11,400 baht. I paid. Another month, the roof on her parents' house needed fixing. 28,600 baht. I paid. I started to notice a pattern, but I suppressed it. I told myself this was what relationships look like in Thailand. I told myself that helping your partner's family was normal, even expected. I told myself I could afford it, and it made Aparadi happy. So what did it matter? 14 months into the relationship, Aparadi said she wanted to get married. She said she loved me and wanted to make it official. She said her parents wanted to see her settled before they got too old. I was hesitant, not because I didn't care about her, but because I'd been married once before in Canada, and it had ended badly. I told her I needed time to think about it. She said she understood. 2 weeks later, I proposed. I bought a gold ring for 38,700 baht. We registered the marriage at the district office in Pattaya. There was no ceremony, just paperwork. She said that was fine. She said the legal registration was what mattered. 3 weeks after we got married, she said she wanted to open a small business. She said she was tired of working at the hotel for low pay and wanted something of her own. She said she wanted to open a laundry shop near Yomtien. She said the startup cost would be about 187,000 baht for equipment, initial rent deposit, and licensing. She said if I helped her, she'd run it herself and we could use the profit to build savings together. I asked how much profit she thought it would generate. She said probably 18,000 to 25,000 baht a month after costs. I asked how long it would take to break even. She said maybe a year. I transferred 187,000 baht. We registered the business under her name because, as a foreigner, I couldn't legally own a majority share without navigating complex legal structures. She said that was just a formality. She said it was our business, not just hers. The laundry shop opened 2 months later. For the first 6 months, Aparadi said it was doing okay. She said she had steady customers, mostly local Thai families, and a few expat clients. She said revenue was building, but she wasn't profitable yet. I said that was expected for a new business. I didn't ask to see the books. I trusted her. 8 months after the laundry shop opened, she said it was struggling. She said a competitor had opened nearby and was undercutting her prices. She said she needed another 63,000 baht to buy a second washing machine and offer faster service to stay competitive. I hesitated. I asked if she'd considered cutting costs instead. She said there were no costs left to cut. She said if I didn't help, the business would fail and all the money I'd already invested would be lost. I transferred 63,000 baht. 3 months later, she said the business was still losing money. She said she needed to close it. I asked what happened to the equipment. She said she sold it for 91,000 baht. I asked where that money went. She said it went to paying off the remaining rent and settling debts with suppliers. I asked for documentation. She said the accountant had it. I asked to meet the accountant. She said he'd moved to Bangkok. At that point, I'd transferred approximately $87,000 to Aparadi over the course of 22 months. That included her mother's medical costs, family emergencies, and the laundry business. I'd also been covering all our household expenses, which ran about $1,540 a month. My savings had dropped from $512,000 to roughly $387,000. I wasn't panicking yet, but I was uncomfortable. I told Apiradi we needed to stop. I told her I couldn't keep funding her family and failed businesses. I told her I needed to protect my own future. She said, "I thought you loved me. I thought we were building a life together." I said I did love her, but love didn't mean financial suicide. She said, "In Thailand, when you marry someone, you take care of their family. If you don't understand that, maybe you don't understand Thailand." That sentence landed hard. It made me feel like I was the one failing, not her. It made me question whether I was being selfish or reasonable. I agreed to keep helping, but only for genuine emergencies. A month later, her brother needed money for a down payment on a truck so he could start a transport business. 57,000 baht. I said no. She cried for 2 days. Then her mother called me directly, speaking through Apiradi as a translator, saying I was the only person who could help the family rise out of poverty. I transferred 57,000 baht. 2 months after that, her sister needed money to pay off a loan shark. 34,000 baht. Apiradi said if I didn't pay it, her sister would be in physical danger. I transferred 34,000 baht. I was hemorrhaging money, and I didn't know how to stop it without ending the relationship. Every time I said no, I was made to feel cruel. Every time I said yes, the requests got bigger. I ran the numbers one night while Apiradi was asleep. In 2 years, I'd given her approximately $118,000. That was nearly a quarter of my retirement savings. I was terrified. I contacted a lawyer in Pattaya the next day, an Australian expat who specialised in foreign Thai legal issues. I explained the situation. I showed him the marriage registration, the business documents, and my bank transfer records. He asked if I had a prenuptial agreement. I said no. He said that under Thai law, any assets acquired during the marriage were considered joint property unless explicitly separated by legal agreement. He said because the laundry business was registered in her name and I'd voluntarily funded it, I had no legal claim to it or to any of the money I'd transferred. Then he asked me a question I hadn't considered. He said, "Have you ever seen her Thai ID card?" I said no. He said, "Ask to see it. Check her marital status." I went home. I waited until Apiradi was showering. I found her ID card in her wallet. Under marital status, it said married, but the date listed was 4 years earlier, 2 years before I'd even met her. When she came out of the bathroom, I was holding the ID card. I asked her who she was married to. She froze. Then she said, "That's old. We're separated." "It doesn't mean anything." I asked if she was legally divorced. She said not yet, but it didn't matter because they didn't live together anymore. I said, "So when you married me, you were already married to someone else?" She said Thai people do that sometimes. She said it was cultural. She said the registration with me was symbolic, not legal. I asked her directly, "Is any of the money I gave you real? Did your mother actually need medication? Did your brother actually need surgery?" She said, "Of course they needed help. My family's poor. You helped them. Why are you making this a problem now?" I said, "Because you lied. Because I thought I was married to you and I wasn't. Because I thought I was investing in our business and it was never ours." She said, "You gave me that money because you wanted to. You can't take it back now." I moved out the next day. I rented a cheap studio apartment in Jomtien for $370 a month. I had $383,000 left in my investment account. I had my rental income from Canada. I had my repair business. I wasn't destitute, but I'd lost nearly $130,000 to a woman who was legally married to someone else the entire time. I thought about going back to Canada. I thought about Fort McMurray, the cold, the isolation, the friends I'd lost touch with, but I couldn't face the humiliation of admitting what had happened. I stayed in Pattaya. I kept working. I kept my head down. A year later, I met a woman at a hardware store. She was 36. She worked in retail. She earned 19,000 baht a month. She seemed kind. We dated for 4 months. Then she asked if I could help her buy a motorbike so she could get to work easier. I said no. She asked why. I told her about Aparadi. She said she wasn't Aparadi. She said she'd pay me back. I said I couldn't take that risk. She said I clearly had trust issues and maybe I should see a therapist. We stopped seeing each other. I'm 64 now. I live in a small apartment in Nayomtian. My rent is $420 a month. My total monthly expenses run about $1,680. My savings are down to $361,000. I still do repair work. I still make enough to cover my costs. I don't date. I don't help anyone financially. I don't trust easily anymore. I've learned that there are 2 kinds of foreign men who survive in Thailand without losing everything. The first kind never integrates financially with a Thai partner. They keep everything separate, everything offshore, everything controlled. The second kind accepts they're going to lose money and decides how much they're willing to lose before it starts. Everyone else, men like me, men who think love and fairness are the same thing, we're just slow-moving ATMs. I thought helping someone meant they'd value you. It doesn't. It just means they know you're useful. I gave Aparadi $130,000 because I believed she cared about me. She didn't. She cared about what I could provide. And when I stopped providing, I stopped mattering. If you're thinking about moving to Thailand and starting over, ask yourself this. If the person you're with lost access to your money tomorrow, would they still be there the day after? I thought the answer was yes. I was wrong. And that mistake cost me more than money. It cost me the ability to trust anyone again. Next time, I'll tell you about the man who thought his visa status made him safe. It didn't. And the woman who used it as leverage kept everything. Word count: 3,847 words. 5 title ideas for related scripts. She was already married. But I didn't know until 187,000 baht later. The laundry business that never made a profit, Pattaya. I checked her Thai ID card. Everything I believed was a lie. How a hotel receptionist drained $130,000 in 22 months married in Pattaya. But the registration meant nothing.